When can my landlord raise my rent? If your landlord raises your rent, you may have rights. If this happens, first look at what your lease says, if you have one. Let's start with fixed-term leases. Most often, this means one-year leases. Your rent will usually stay the same for the whole lease period. A lease might say how and when rent increases happen, if at all. If there is nothing in the lease about rent increases, and the lease specifies a monthly rent, the landlord can't increase the rent. The lease might say when the landlord can increase the rent, or it might say that your rent can't go up for some set amount of time. This is binding on both of you. If you have a periodic lease, usually month to month, your landlord may raise your rent by any amount, as often as they want. There is no rent control in Minnesota except in public or subsidized housing. But there are things a landlord has to do before raising your rent. The landlord has to tell you in writing that your rent is going up no later than 11:59 p.m. on the day before the next rental period begins. The rent increase does not take effect until the second rental period following the notice, unless the notice states that it is effective at an even later date. For example, written notice given in December cannot be effective until February. This basically gives every tenant at least a month before a rent increase can happen. There are 3 other situations where a landlord can't raise your rent. The landlord raised rent to retaliate against you for exercising your rights. The landlord raised rent to discriminate against you. Or the landlord gave improper notice. If you think your rent went up because of discrimination, contact the Minnesota Department of Human Rights or your local civil rights department to file a complaint. If the landlord tries to evict you because you have not paid increased rent, they need to file a case in court. Make sure to tell the judge about the improper notice or discrimination or retaliation. If you think your rent has been raised unlawfully, you can find help and referral information at LawHelpMN.